Educational Service Center of Central Ohio. So we're very excited to have you here this morning, as I know it's a really busy time for everyone. So we really appreciate the time that you're taking to join us this morning. We have a great agenda planned for today with lots of guest speakers that are sharing the great work that they are doing across Central Ohio. So we're very excited to have you here this morning. And with that, I'm just going to jump into our agenda because we have a lot planned this morning. We actually have Amy Lloyd here this morning, whom I will introduce in a little more detail here in just a minute. And then we also have Celeste Lewis, who will be joining us this morning to talk about a teacher externship program that they have happening at Columbus City. And we also have a virtual employment engagement series that has been happening in some of the middle schools at Columbus City that we'll be talking about. And we also want to update you on the great work that's been happening with all of our work groups, and then talk about what some ways are that you can get involved in the great work that the Business Advisory Council is doing. So with that, I would like to introduce our first guest speaker this morning. We have Amy Lloyd with us. She serves as the Vice President of Jobs for the Future. In this role, she guides states and regions in developing and scaling effective policies, infrastructure, and practices to build sustainable systems of college and career pathways aligned with regional labor markets, which sounds just like the work that we have been doing in our Business Advisory Council. So we're super excited that Amy can join us this morning and share some of the great work that she's doing and also some resources and information. Amy is going to share all of her PowerPoint slides and the information that she's sharing today. So I'll be sure to send that out after the meeting to everyone so that we'll have that and we'll have it ready to go. So thank you so much again for joining us. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen in order to allow Amy to share hers. So Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Terrific. Let me see if I can do this. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
And
looks
do
good.
you see all the little slides at the bottom, or do you see one big slide?
One big slide.
Excellent. Oh, on my first try even.
Great.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I am here to share about two different things, and I was telling Christine and John that I have more slides that I'm going to go through today, but I wanted to compile some resources for you to think about as you're designing how you're engaging with young people, both from a virtual and remote perspective, but also, thinking about IT pre-apprenticeship in particular. I wanted to give some highlights there, recognizing that pre-apprenticeship is now taking shape more and more in Ohio, and that IT cuts across all industry sectors. And so I'm just really grateful to be with you here today. You may know that I have been engaged with Central Ohio's pathway efforts. I see my friend Marcy Raymond on the call for almost 10 years now, in supporting the great work that the ESC has been doing and learning from all that the entire region has been doing and working across all the school districts in partnership with Columbus State. Like, I really appreciate the role that employers play. You are ultimately kind of where the rubber meets the road in all of our vision for college and career pathways. So I'm glad that this group is coming together and thinking about this work. A quick note about JFF, I work for a national nonprofit. At JFF, all of our work is really centered on economic advancement, and we think about how we can redesign and transform the education and workforce systems to ensure that all people have access to economic advancement and self-determination. We have a focus on people, places, and systems. And so when we think about work like in Central Ohio, we think about the regional ecosystem that you're in. We think about the young people that you're serving, and we think about the employers that are in the community that have talent pipeline needs. And then ultimately we think about how you are really leading the country in so many ways of how you're rethinking how you're working together as an entire ecosystem. And suddenly my slides won't advance. Oh, and suddenly they advanced really quickly. Forgive my early morning tech challenges here. I'm getting that lovely spinning rainbow. Do you ever get that on your computer? JFF partners with a whole bunch of different kinds of entities across K-12, higher ed, business and industry, philanthropy, kind of across the board. And where we are right now is, I know that you are feeling this very acutely as well, is like sitting at this moment of all of these intersecting crises. And so when we think about like the deepening and widening inequities along race and class, and gaps in access to quality education, or in access to technology, or in access to rewarding work, or the incredible disruptions that have been happening, including the transition to remote learning, remote working that will stay with us for a long time. Like, we're just thinking about how this is a moment for us to reimagine and really innovate on a number of things related to the Pathways agenda and to education and workforce development writ large. So as we're thinking about this moment right now, we have so many opportunities in our work to reimagine and innovate what good jobs are, what the role of credentials is, how we think about more competency-based models, or credit for prior learning, or skills-based hiring, or racial justice and equity. But I wanted to really center on, like, this is an opportunity for us to really think about how we build high quality, rigorous, and remote work-based learning strategies. And so that's what I wanted to first talk a little bit about. And I should have said that I welcome any chats or questions along the way. I'm going to gallop through these slides very quickly, and again, you'll have all of them. But if anything comes up for you in this, please, shoot a chat, and I'm happy to pause and have conversation about a particular thing. I really want this to be relevant to you, but I also know it's early in the morning, and so let me know if I can be of any assistance to you after the presentation as well. A quick note about why work-based learning, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir, like, I don't need to make this case to you. You're here because you care about talent pipeline development and connecting to education. But just a note that, like, the reality is the majority of young people get very little advice about pathways from education to careers and career possibilities writ large. Like, people just don't talk about the role of work, and even our most well-educated families who have thriving careers only know the labor market that they're in. They only know the industry sectors that they work in. And they don't necessarily have a sense of what the current labor market is or what the future labor market is. And the people that our young people spend the most time with, educators, typically have come up through K-12, into a four-year college degree, into the world of education, and haven't necessarily understood the wide array of incredible opportunities in other industry sectors. And so we really at JFF are thinking about how we ensure that all young people, not just those fortunate to be in high quality CTE programming, but all young people have access to thinking about what it means to be future ready while they're still in the K-12 space, so they can make meaningful choices about post-secondary credentials, and so that they can connect meaningfully with the world of work and be ready to enter successfully at the workforce. This is one of my favorite cartoons, and it's from a cartoonist in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I think about this as like the regressive cycle of blame when it comes to often how ecosystems can think about the challenges that they're facing, right? And so I circled the employers here. So business and industry often struggles to find the right talent. We often hear about skills gaps. We often hear about the mismatch between what our graduates have and what employers are needing. And it just keeps going back to, well, college needs better high school grads, and high school needs better prepared middle schoolers. And you go all the way back to needing more pre-K programs or better prenatal care, and then back to needing better jobs. And so rather than like engaging in this, I know that the Central Ohio region thinks differently about this work, and the ESC has been at the fore of leading some of these conversations. It really takes a networked village to build a pathway. And so I think about the role of business and industry as being essential here, in partnership with many other entities coming together with clear value propositions while you're at the table. And this is an example from some of our partners in Hawaii. As we're thinking about what we're ultimately seeking to accomplish, like, we want strong college and career outcomes for all of the community in Central Ohio, right? We want to ensure that you have the strong talent pipeline you need, that the community is thriving, that you as business and industry leaders are strong and growing your talent, that schools and colleges and the ecosystem are strong. And a component of this is, beyond the rigorous academics and the career advising and counseling, work-based learning is an essential element to ensuring that young people have a leg up on the world of work and are able to enter your work successfully. So we think about a whole array of work-based learning opportunities. And for JFF, a real dividing line for work-based learning is what takes place in authentic work-based settings. And prior to the pandemic, we would say what takes place in the world of work, like in the workplace physically. And now that the world of work has transformed tremendously, and many of us are working from home, as I am right now, and probably many of you are, what is the world of work and how do we think about work-based learning when young people are not necessarily going out to do a job shadow or an internship in person with you in your company's site? And so the dividing line for us is anything that's career fair, industry projects, project-based learning that's school-based is career exploration. And then when we get into the world of work-based learning, it's not a linear progression. You know, it's not a checklist. It's likely going to be an iterative process, not just over a young person's time in K-12 and secondary, post-secondary, but really over someone's lifetime. Like as you switch careers, and it seems like today, young people are expected to switch careers 17 times over 5 different industry sectors. There's going to be an array of like lifelong learning connected to work. This is from a resource that JFF put together around some of our 7 principles related to high quality work-based learning. And I won't spend much time on this, but I just wanted to call out that it really does have multiple facets when you're thinking about what designing high quality work-based learning looks like for young people, whether high school or post-secondary students. And this is this is the worst PowerPoint slide in the world because there are 4,000 words on here and you probably can't read any of them. But I wanted to share it because what I like about this is at a glance, it's color coded. So this is something that the state of Illinois did. And I know you probably have similar kind of post-secondary and career expectations. By the end of 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, we've seen some of these continuums that go well into 13th, 14th, so the first 2 years of post-secondary. Yellow is career exploration development. Red is financial aid and financial literacy, which is an often kind of underdeveloped area for young people. And then green is post-secondary education and exploration, preparation, selection. And I love that it integrates an approach to like, let's make sure career exploration is at the fore for all students across their entirety of the secondary continuum. So don't read every word on this, but just see what it's like. This is a similarly overwhelming slide. And for that, I apologize, but I wanted to share this because what I like about this is a menu for you, for employers, to know what you're getting into when our education systems are asking you to engage. So if you look at the dark blue, the navy across the top, that's career awareness. The light blue is career exploration and planning, career preparation, and then career training. This is how our partners in New York City have thought about it. And they have really clearly defined like how many hours will this take if you want to be a supporter, if you want to go a little deeper and be a partner and think about days commitment, if you want to commit weeks, if you want to commit months. It's a whole continuum across an array of different kinds of work-based learning activities that really make clear what is needed from you. And ultimately, I think the flip side of this is making sure that you get what you need out of it too. So I like this menu as well as just a collateral kind of example of how places are approaching this. And I know we're short on time and you have lots of rich agendas. I'm probably not going to ask you to enter in the chat this, but I'm very curious to hear from you, via email or in chat if you want to, like curious how things have shifted for you since last March, excuse me. Because these are some of the challenges that we're hearing from the field with respect to work-based learning right now. And like ultimately, the challenge for employers is like many of our small and mid-sized, and frankly, even our larger employers are struggling to stay afloat in this context across the country and holding on to their existing talent, having a slack labor market, not having the same sense of urgency to have to do upstream strategies to ensure that we're supporting younger people because there are millions of unemployed, skilled adult workers who are seeking jobs. And so how do we ensure that we're connecting young people still so we don't stand to lose a whole generation of young people even more disconnected from the world of work? And then the work-based learning that is happening, like if it's virtual, sometimes it's not rigorous, sometimes it's not long enough to really meet the goals that students may have, sometimes it's not developing the core skills needed. It often is disconnected from industry recognized credentials or certificates. There often isn't this continuum of really understanding how to support learners through kind of career preparation, training, mentorship. There's a whole bunch of challenges with technology, not to mention kind of the digital divide that a lot of people are facing. And then there are lots of equity gaps widening. And so we're seeing, while many places like Central Ohio have a long-standing commitment to business and industry partnership with education, like COVID's really pressing us all to re-examine like what matters most and how do we ensure that we hold on to the value that you derive from this in ways that make sense for you and for students as well. So this is from our partners in New York City, an organization, they're an intermediary organization called Here to Here, and they play like a work-based learning matching role in their ecosystem, connecting young people with work-based learning opportunities. And last summer, the mayor's office typically runs a summer youth employment program, which is connected to work-based learning. It's not just getting kids in jobs, but it's trying to connect kids to kind of their career trajectories and their interests and what they're doing in school. And they pulled the plug because of COVID. And then they put the plug back in and thought, okay, how can we re-engage with virtual work-based learning? And Here to Here has been one of the forerunners in the country developing key distinguishers for what virtual work-based learning looks like. And one of the link at the very bottom, the also checkout link here, is a link to a report they just released last month about what's next for the world of virtual and remote work-based learning, and has some case examples of how they've been grappling with it. But wanted to just elevate that many of the things that are true for in-person work-based learning are just as true for remote and virtual work-based learning. I mean, the access to reliable access to technology is a differentiating feature perhaps, but the connections so that they're linked to their arc of learning overall, the social and professional relationships that they're developing, and social capital is essential. The relevance that ultimately, whatever you're designing in a remote world needs to be of value to you and value to the community and help students build skills. And some of the takeaways are kind of related back to JFF's principles for high quality work-based learning, that we want to ensure that that students are getting something in return. So paid work-based learning or credits and certifications, and just ensuring that it's a solid stepping stone for them in their own career trajectories. And then some other considerations for work-based learning that we found are, considering equity, considering the relational aspect of it, and really thinking about like what it means to be youth-centered in a work-based learning setting that's virtual. So on the equity, like thinking about ensuring that those who have been most marginalized from opportunities have access to it. How are you ensuring that you're recruiting and engaging young people who may not otherwise have any opportunity? Because right now we know that the labor market, like the entry-level jobs that our young people typically get, whether it's in food service or retail or hospitality and tourism, are in the industry sectors that are hit hardest by the pandemic, and are therefore losing staff, and really hard for young people to even get a leg into some of the starting places where they typically might have found their first steps into developing work skills. On the relational aspect, like we really think about how you build and maintain relationships and help students to have deliberate, structured, formal and informal ways of building their networks and their sense of social capital, because we know that it's skills that they need. Obviously, all young people need strong, successful, like work readiness skills to enter the labor market. And it's understanding how to navigate the interpersonal relationships that are really essential. And it's having that social capital and that network of people who often help connect you to your first and second and third jobs. And then on the youth-centered piece, just really thinking about like, can you work around the schedules of young people? Can you think about developmental needs that they may have, or elevating their voice somehow and engaging them in designing work-based learning experiences that work for them?
So Amy,
yep, go for it.
We have a couple questions in the chat that you may want to just look at. One is asking just about braided funding models that have been successful in scaling the work in a region and state. So just kind of talking about those and describing what that might look like. Oh my goodness. Tom, it's great to see your name. And Steve, hi. Oh my goodness. I have your faces on one screen and I just see my slideshow over here. So thanks for calling out the chat, Christine. Braided funding is a really essential consideration here. So when you're thinking about any pathways endeavor, but specifically work-based learning, like we've seen different ways of funding work-based learning through private
and public dollars, because you can use some, limited WIOA dollars. You can use, some states are dedicating interesting uses of allocations of like their Perkins Reserve dollars or TANF dollars. Like, how do we incentivize business and industry to lean into work-based learning through subsidized work experiences for young people, but also ensuring that the employers themselves that are benefiting from young people's engagement are putting some money on the table and also supporting it. So I can point to some examples of specific braided funding, but I would think probably most relevant to that question, Tom, is we've developed a braided funding toolkit that has been based in some of our learning, both from the adult education space and from the college and career pathway space, of how states and regions have come together and really put at the center of their work the pathways agenda. And then from all the different partners around the It Takes a Village ecosystem, everybody has had, as they've found funding opportunities, whether it's through foundations or corporate philanthropy or through state dollars or federal dollars, that they find ways to connect it to the work. And so I can point to, in particular, like Delaware has done a really outstanding job of thinking about how they're funding, across education, workforce development, business and industry, the philanthropic sector in the state have, all chipped in and deliberately like created a funding model that has been super successful in scaling this work. And I would argue that Delaware is both a region and a state. Like, they contend with the complexity of a state, but they are, ultimately probably geographically not all that larger than the Central Ohio region. So I'd be happy to share the Delaware specific example and also kind of the braided funding toolkit that we have for that. And Steve, who's doing a great job with a comprehensive approach to work-based learning. And we find that, and you're living this, that labor markets are ultimately regional. And I'm curious to see how the pandemic shapes that and whether it shifts that, because remote working is now very much a dominant paradigm for many people that likely will remain an option post-pandemic. And so is geography still going to be the defining labor market shed? And so I look forward to seeing how that shifts. But right now at the state level, we see states like, Massachusetts has, they've kept over from the school to work days a connecting activities line item in the state budget, where the state funds the state education agency, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, to sub-award funding to the regional workforce boards. So it's state funding that goes through K-12 out to workforce boards to scale work-based learning for high school students across the state. And I think that's a really interesting example of how the states continue to prioritize work-based learning and inherently connect K-12 and workforce. Texas is doing some really interesting work in this. I showed you the Illinois continuum. I would also look to Tennessee and how they're thinking about regional approaches to designing and delivering high quality systems of work-based learning through regional intermediaries. So yes, there are lots of states where there's high employer engagement. Right now in the COVID time, I'd say that's region by region rather than at the state level because of the variability in what COVID is doing to employers. But yes, great questions, and so many tools and resources out there. And absolutely, you will have access to the PowerPoint and all the slides. And these are all live links in here in all of these slides. So you'll have lots of good opportunities to dig in further. And JFF welcomes, if we can be of use to you and pointing you to more specific examples in the field, we certainly can. All right, I know I just have maybe 10 more minutes. Is there anything else on virtual work-based learning? Because I wanted to pivot a little bit to pre-apprenticeship, just to plant a seed in your mind about how you might think about pre-apprenticeship as a form of work-based learning that you can engage in your region, especially thinking about the IT sector and how that's relevant likely to all of what you're doing in all of your industry sectors, since we know that it is so cross-cutting. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Stop me anytime. What is pre-apprenticeship? So very, very quickly, pre-apprenticeship programs, as you likely know, are training initiatives that are designed to prepare people to succeed in a registered apprenticeship or any other kind of, like there are now a whole array of different kinds of apprenticeship, like Swiss models or IRAPs, the industry recognized apprenticeship programs. But ultimately, this is like, how do we support young people for success in apprenticeship through designing really strong on-ramps into them with pre-apprenticeship programs. And JFF has defined, excuse me, defined 6 key characteristics, and these are based on both the US Department of Labor outline of what is a high quality pre-apprenticeship program, but also from our decades, we've been around for 37 years now, but decade plus of really intensive apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship focus and partnership with the field. And so I have slides later that go into lots of detail around each of these 6 key characteristics and give you some questions and considerations. If you want to think about designing a high quality pre-apprenticeship program, how do you go about doing that? So the value of pre-apprenticeship, like really thinking about like what is pre-apprenticeship and like why should we think about something that perhaps might feel overwhelming or like more things to redesign and rethink. Like we really love pre-apprenticeship because it ultimately levels the playing field. It helps on academic and work readiness skills. There's a really clear curriculum. So just like with any high quality apprenticeship, we would, design a pre-apprenticeship curriculum with you, with business and industry needs and requirements in mind. So you reverse engineer any pathway endeavor from what are the needs of the labor market? What are business and industry needs in terms of skills and positions that they need to fill? And how do we design a pre-apprenticeship that really ensures that we're meeting those needs? And it embeds industry recognized credentials and micro credentials into it. And I often say not just like industry recognized, but industry sought. Like what are you really looking for when you're looking to hire new talent? Because it's one thing to say, yes, I recognize that, but it's another to say like, I need that. And pre-apprenticeship also includes things like wraparound services. And what we like about it is it gets back to it takes a village to build a pathway. Pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship can be offered by a range of entities. So you can look at your high school partners, community college partners, community-based organizations, your nonprofits in the region, the ESC, workforce agencies. Like there are lots of entities that can come together to help design pre-apprenticeship or any form of high quality work-based learning, frankly. Not going to go into too much detail about what a quality program achieves, but again, you will have all of these slides. But wanted to do a quick nod just to dig into an example industry sector. So when we think about the IT sector, we think about this as being one of the few, what we refer to as like future-proof sectors, right? Like the labor market is wildly fluctuating. We know even prior to the pandemic that the jobs that our young people today will have in the future may not even exist. But we know that there are foundational skills that will likely remain. Healthcare is another that it is not an industry sector that's going away, but instead is on the upswing. Tech is another big one. So tech and healthcare, when we're thinking about like best bets for how we're ensuring that young people will likely have a good foothold into a first job and a career in that sector, IT is a good bet. It's remained strong during the pandemic and the recession. There have been millions of postings for it. These are some of the top postings on the right here. Excuse me. And when we think about the tech sector, we tend to zoom straight into the technical skills. And I want to emphasize that in any of the work-based learning programs that you're designing, in any of the pathways work that you're leading across K-12, across post-secondary, like we still need to lean into the foundational human skills and employability skills. So even in the tech sector, if you're thinking about designing, for example, an IT pre-apprenticeship program, that #1 skill, I don't know if you can see those tiny words, is communication skills, and then teamwork and collaboration, problem solving, troubleshooting, planning, writing, research, creativity, all the things that we know are uniquely human and not susceptible to automation to the same degree that other technical skills might be. So when we think about jobs being displaced by robots or artificial intelligence or other ways of automating work, like these are the things that we still need to lean into in all of the work-based learning and pathways work that you're designing. When we think about like the high demand IT skills in particular, like there's data that you can pull from Burning Glass. Like the graph on the left here shows these top tech skills that have been in demand based upon job posting data. And there's been a lot of consistency in pre versus post. There's been a little variability, but so it's both the uniquely human skills and technical skills paired together that make the most effective career pathway design across K-12 and post-secondary, but the most effective pre-apprenticeship program and work-based learning program too. Basic level of math. Sean, I see your question regarding math competence and success required to succeed in IT programs. I think from region to region, I should have pulled the Central Ohio data. From region to region, tech is one of these things where it's an industry sector that's very strongly skills-based and less so credential-based. There are some strong tech credentials that signal to employers the skills that folks have, but I've heard from employers across the country like, hey, if a young person can demonstrate to me that she can code or that she has the ability to design the systems that I need, I'm not going to look at her transcript. I'm not going to care about her credentials. I want her to do the work. Other places, no, I need to make sure that my candidates have all taken this particular program of study that have this particular math program of study embedded in it. So I would say it varies from employer to employer and region to region. Obviously, a lot of the tech skills related to technology and IT have a strong component of math in them. But I would frankly defer to our friends at Columbus State and get a sense of what you're requiring in terms of your math requirements for degrees and credentials in this space. I know that we're building out tech pathways for adult education and considering adults who have very limited numeracy and literacy skills. How do we have concurrent learning for them that integrates career-focused learning in technology alongside bolstering their basic literacy and numeracy. So I know it can be done for a whole array of learners. Industry entry points into the tech field, lots of different ways into the work. And these are the sorts of things where I have a 14-year-old daughter and it would never occur to her to say, I want to be a cybersecurity analyst. Like when we're thinking about how do we support young people to start trying on possible identities and futures for themselves, like exposing them to the array of opportunities through things like high quality work-based learning and apprenticeship is really powerful for them. If we had all day, I would love to hear your insights, and I would still love to after this. I know you've got a lot more content, but just curious how you're using labor market information to build or refine your pathways, how you're thinking about connecting it to things like apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship. And then I will not go through these slides in detail because I know that I will send them to you afterwards, but just wanted to show you that there's a lot of benefits to pre-apprenticeship in the IT industry in particular. And recognizing that this may be of particular interest for your region, just wanted to have this slide up. And then we have these slides of, again, the 6 key characteristics. For each characteristic, we have what you need to be clear about and your key considerations for how you would design a high quality pre-apprenticeship program in any industry sector, IT or otherwise. But JFF has a number of resources specific to the IT pre-apprenticeship that we've released over the last year that are gaining a lot of traction in the field because it is such an in-demand field. And it's almost like a ready-made toolkit of, so you want to develop a pre-apprenticeship program in IT, here's how you do it. And so again, there's all these characteristics. And then if you go all the way to the end, if we had time, we would have great discussions. I've included further platforms to support virtual work-based learning, virtual internship and work-based learning experiences, targeted virtual work-based learning experiences around microbadging or virtual counseling or virtual field trips, and then a whole bunch of pre-apprenticeship resources along with some recommended data resources, because ultimately you want to make sure that you're building opportunities that have traction in the labor market today, but that help young people, envision a trajectory, not just for the short term, but for the mid and long term for their careers. So that's it for me. I have a colleague at JFF named Deborah Kobus, who is our director of our Center on Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning. And if anything, I'm kind of channeling her here today because she's really the expert in all of these things, but I'm happy to answer any further questions. She can be a resource for you, but just know that JFF has been a long-standing committed partner to your region. We care about Central Ohio. We really admire the work that you're doing and the strong partnerships that you've built. And if we can be of any use to you in helping you rethink or reimagine how you would deliver on remote work-based learning or think about designing pre-apprenticeship in tech or other industry sectors, please let us know. Really appreciate all that you're doing for your region and for the young people in Central Ohio.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate everything that you shared. I want to give an opportunity for anyone to ask any additional questions to you because you're such a great resource. So I think we have a couple more in the chat if you'd like to just answer some of those.
Yeah, I see, Rich, I see your question about high school capstone projects and integrating employer problems into the classroom. I'm thinking about, it might have been 7, 8, 9 years ago when I visited Reynoldsburg and was blown away by some of the problem-based learning that employers were doing in partnership with the classrooms there. And so I think you as a region, probably have some districts that are on some of the leading edges of integrating employer problems into the classroom learning. I'm also thinking about there's a school district in Georgia that is near one of the world's largest producers of wire called Southwire that strings electrical wire. It's over half of the world's electricity flows through Southwire wire. And this is in Carroll County, Georgia, in Carrollton, Georgia. It's a rural-ish region about an hour outside of Atlanta. And this wire company put some challenges on the table that were relevant to their needs. So they asked, high school classes to design a way for them to learn how much wire is left on those gigantic spools so that they could not just discard the spools after they've run so much wire and they didn't know how much was left. The kids developed an app so that Southwire could precisely calculate the remaining wire left, which they had not yet done, that they still use today. And so they're putting it's most meaningful when young people in classroom settings are working on questions that employers are really grappling with that are within the student's ability to kind of think about differently. So I've seen some really cool examples of how problem-based learning has been a win-win for employers and for students to work together in teams. And then high school capstone projects are an excellent example of that. I'd point to big picture learning schools across the country and how they inherently design capstone projects for high school, for graduating seniors to do community engaged research on problems of practice that employers or communities are facing, and then have their culminating experience via capstone. Really valuable ways for young people to engage in community in the world of work. So absolutely love capstones, love employer problems, and can point to many more examples of those as well.
Great, thank you. Any further questions for Amy before we let her go on to her very busy schedule?
It's a pleasure seeing everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. And again, think of us as partners. Steve knows we are committed to your region and really, really value what you do.
Well, thank you, Amy. We really appreciate you coming and sharing all those great resources. And like I said, I'll be sure to send all those out to everyone on the meeting so that you can check out all those great links and all of the research information, the tools that Amy shared. So we really appreciate you coming and talking with us because I know we've all been struggling with some of the problems that you brought up in your presentation today. How can we make sure that we provide these high quality experiences for our students in the environment that we're in? So really appreciate everything that you shared with us this morning, Amy.
It's my pleasure. Let us know if we can be of any other help. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Okay. So we are going to move on to the next piece in our agenda. We're very excited to have Celeste Lewis talking with us this morning. She is the Director of Career and Technical Education at Columbus City Schools, and she wanted to share about a teacher externship program that will be happening at Columbus City this summer, and also just reach out to employers to see if there's interest in getting involved and partnering with Columbus City. So I will turn it over to Celeste.
Sorry, Celeste, you're on mute.
Well, let me try that again. Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Christine, for the introduction. We're very excited at Columbus City Schools to have received the Educational Opportunity Grant. And this part of the grant, the Expanding Opportunities, is a very important part of it. And we have created different venues of expanding opportunities within the district. And this one especially, the teacher expansion, is very important because as teachers get very settled into their teaching, sometimes they do not have as many connections in the industry as they would like. And they haven't seen the trends that are happening firsthand in the industry. And so the teacher externship program looks to place teachers in aligned employment that is matched to their content area of instruction. So for instance, if a teacher is in manufacturing, we're looking for manufacturing employers that would be ready and able to house our teachers for a 2-week span. Teachers will be able to sign up for 2-week spans during the summer. And we have a spreadsheet that shows the teachers that would be involved in the program, and then also employers can sign up on that spreadsheet, and that matching will start to happen. CTE, this provides teachers just another piece of information, updated information for them and their experience into the classroom. It helps to integrate that experience overall. You know, a lot of times kids ask, well, what is it like in manufacturing? What is it like? And so the teacher can actually bring back that experience to the classroom to share with the students. The other thing that the teachers may not understand or have been in place recently is how is that work environment, what's that look like in today's marketplace? They might have been teaching for 10 years in a classroom. It's definitely changed. Manufacturing has changed, machinery has changed, process and procedures have changed. So all of those things, you know, help them to update their availability and their opportunities to share with students more. And then gain additional connections to Central Ohio employers. It never fails that sometimes when you have one person in a room, that's the only person that they're going to be able to connect with is themselves. However, if we start making more connections and placements, those people can help to make our programs more strengthened by the information they're providing. Amy made some great points in her presentation about, you know, the networking that needs to be involved and the village of people it takes to make a pathway work. And we want to see those pathways and classrooms be those rigorous environments for our students that they can accomplish and gain the not only experience, but also the certifications necessary to create apprenticeship programs and create those pathways into the strong areas of industry that are being developed and growing for the Central Ohio market. We have approximately 100 CTE teachers in secondary and middle school levels. And so we're looking at placing at least 100 teachers into the job market for 2 weeks. And the greatest thing about this is that I will tell our employers is that this is not on your dime, it's on the grant's dime. And so those 2 weeks that our teachers are with you, they are yours to have them work. and be a part of your workforce for those 2 weeks and learn the environment and different opportunities within that workforce that are coming avail more recently. And, you know, some of the adaptedness that you've had during COVID in the work environment that they can share in the classroom. And so all of that experience that they're going to gain is very helpful to the program. How are teachers selected and placed in this program? Thank you, Carolyn, for the question. So the teachers volunteer, basically. They give up their 2 weeks in the summer and sign up if they're interested in the program and being a part of this program. And once we have them signed up, then we can open up the spreadsheet for employers to connect with and sign up as well. Teachers are also, there are 3-week sections, and if I'm able to share my screen. I'll show you what we have set up for the externship program. This is our large sheet of our teachers, and we have a number of them. As you can see, it includes the high school and the secondary section. And then on this side, we have the dates of available externships based on 2 weeks. And then the available externship time the teacher will put in, and then the company will align to that to have the student excuse me. Of course, the teacher becomes a student in a sense during that period of time, but they have the teacher to reach out, and we will monitor that and work with the employer and the teacher to match up. We've also developed some of the expectations within the teacher program for them to follow. For instance, their normal expectations that we're hoping that they're sharing in their classrooms with their students. You know, basically you have a duty to arrive on time. You need to report to your externship supervisor each morning, complete the task and the projects assigned, work professionally with all the employees, work from a customer service mindset, no matter who you can contact with. What can I do to help? Provide positive input and communications to fellow employees and company management, and follow all company-oriented procedures, rules, regulations. Then on the externship side, we're looking at things that you normally do on an everyday basis, but again, sometimes these need to be called up so everybody knows a transparency of what's being expected. Provide the safe environment, include externs in all normal communications while assigned to the business, verify extern attendance to the externship site Monday through Thursday. And in this program on Fridays, our externs come back and they will be working on their lesson plans that they can integrate into their school teaching in the classroom. That's our accountability piece for them. Besides their attendance, their accountability piece is to come back and formalize the learning that they've had in that week into a lesson plan that they'll be able to give in their classroom. Provide externs with the proper expectations of their duties for assignments while in placement. Answer and encourage open dialogue regarding the industry placement and changes in the industry. You know, many of them might get placed and says, you know, I don't really, you know, that software is new, or that program is new, or that piece of machinery is new. You know, what's the cost? Why does it update? What's the benefit of having it? Those kinds of things. How does it make you competitive in the marketplace? What's the overall skills that might be needed by a student that I should be teaching them to prepare for the marketplace in that job area? So those kind of questions can come up. Assist the extern in gaining new experiences in the industry that they can share within the classroom environment to expand student knowledge and understanding of the industry. Assign externs to work groups in which they can play a productive part of learning about the current industry setting, and share your extern materials, any materials that would be deemed helpful to incorporate into a lesson plan for their student. So if there's some kind of specific process or accountability within the organization that a person has to fill out. You know, if you can share that with the teacher to help them demonstrate that and show what the industry is really progressed to. Many things are done online. So if there is an opportunity to share with them a sign-on so they can show the industry way of doing things and how that market works, that's very helpful as well. One of the other things in order to make this happen is the opportunity to send out an explanation of the program to each of our employers that are interested. It gives the breakdown of the program, and I have the weeks listed of the program and what will happen. For instance, our first sign-up week is June 7th through the 18th. The second week, 21st through 25th. Then July 5th and 9th is the second 2 weeks, depending on when that person signs up. And then the last one would be July 12th through the 23rd. And so we have 4-week sections that we're looking at, but actually we're only going to be running in a way 3-week sessions. The explanation of the participating externship in this schedule for 4 days and what's expected of the teacher as well, in the sense of gaining the lesson plan in a full circle of comprehensiveness for the student involvement in the classroom. Does it touch on math? Does it touch on the English language arts system? Does it incorporate the techniques and applications of the industry for their lesson plan that we're looking at them to write? Sorry, getting a little tongue-tied. And then the last thing is a letter that we would be sending out to the business stakeholder or point of contact for the business. This is the letter that you would receive explaining again the setup and the externship program, the purpose, and where you can get information regarding the externship to be involved. So we have all the kinds of systems, I'll start sharing, in place. Now it's a matter of the biggest part for us is going to be the recruitment. And recruitment of businesses and industries that are willing to partner with us for our teachers' externship. Because again, the teacher is the full force of what a student is going to be learning in the classroom until they're in a work-based situation. Then it becomes a more collaborative process between the teacher and the school system and the partner business that is providing the work-based learning environment for the student. And so all of those areas are very important, but the biggest important piece is the teacher and their delivery, their knowledge, their information, their encouragement of that student that they can feel and actually get some of that same feeling that a student might have going back out into industry and being able to relate better to the student in regards to, well, when you start a new position or when you go into industry, they can draw off those more recent experience and kind of get a refresh of information for themselves. So that's my quick presentation regarding our externship program. And I'm looking in the chat at the moment. What is the deadline for the industry to sign into the program? The deadline that I'm looking at would be May 1st. That would give us enough time for placement and introductions to the partnering industry for the teacher to get a hold of them. My hope is, again, this is kind of based on the COVID situation, but I am hoping that we're back to more normalcy during the summer so we can do more things for our students as well as our teachers. And this would be one of those things. So my hope is that prior to that June date, the end of May, we can bring all our partners together in maybe 2 sessions, a morning session and the afternoon session, and for an introduction with their teachers and the like.
So Celeste, if a business or industry would like to get involved with your project, should they just reach out and contact you then? Is that the best way if they're interested in participating?
Yeah, definitely. I put up on my screen and I stopped sharing. I don't know if you can put back up at the information for, or if I should share my screen.
I can definitely send out the information afterwards as well,
Sure.
so that everyone will have it in case they are interested in getting in touch with you. So they will have the PowerPoint afterwards, and I'll also include your contact information as well.
Yeah, that's great. The information is at the bottom of the slide. You can reach out to me. Easiest in this day and age, more so in reaching out by email. I'm happy to make any meetings and to make this successful and make it work in a new environment for our teachers and a new learning experience. You know, we just want to get them excited about the industry and the content they're teaching so that they can engage with more recent, updated knowledge.
We also had a question about whether
I'll also
teachers.
put my information on the chat. Did the teachers get paid?
Okay. Well, I think we may have lost Celeste here. Her screen may have frozen, but I do know she shared that the teachers do get paid for participating. They have an expanding opportunities grant that they're utilizing to help to fund that. So if you have additional questions or you're interested in more information about how they set up the program, Celeste shared that she'll share her email in the chat. And we'll also make sure that you get all of her contact information so that you can reach out to her and get involved. So thank you so much, Celeste, for joining us and sharing information about your program. Really appreciate that. Okay, so we are going to move on to the next piece in our agenda this morning. And we just wanted to provide a quick update about the great work groups that are happening outside of our Business Advisory Council. So when we have Business Advisory Council meetings, different topics emerge, different needs emerge from our participants and our members. And one of those is really thinking about how can we make sure that parents have an awareness of all of the great work that we're doing and all of the pathways that are available to their students. And something that Amy said really resonated with me about how students can try on possible identities and think about their future selves. And that's really what we want to think about when we're thinking about how we can create this awareness among parents and guardians and students. We want them to know that they have many pathways to help them be successful in school and be prepared for the future. So what this group has been working on is developing that messaging. What you see in front of you is kind of their elevator pitch, you know, what they really want that message to be. And what we're working on is developing a communication toolbox that all of our partners can use to help share out that message. And in that toolbox will be some of the great information that comes from a lot of our speakers. So for instance, we'll include a lot of that information about regional trends, in-demand jobs, skills gaps, all those kind of things. We'll also create social media campaigns that different participants can just use and modify and again, share out that information. We'll think about how we can plan regional events, virtual events that we can have parents and students participate to really help them understand what these pathways look like and how they can enter them. And again, it's all about just opportunities for parents and students to learn more about work-based learning opportunities and how they can try on some of these possible identities and future selves. So this group has been meeting monthly. We're making great progress. We're starting to develop the toolbox. And as always, if any of you are interested in joining a work group, we will have a call to action at the end of our meeting where you can indicate your interest, and we'll make sure that you can get involved in this work. And then, of course, we will continue to share out the results of these work groups. So all of you will have access to this toolbox and to the virtual events so that we can really, again, continue to take that regional approach to building this work and sharing out the awareness for parents and students. So I'm going to turn it over to John Hambrick, who's our coordinator, work-based learning coordinator. This is actually John's 1-year anniversary at the ESC today. John has been a wonderful addition to our team and has done some fantastic work. So John is going to share with you an update about our other work group that we have going on, and then also lead a great panel about events that we've been doing remotely with employers. So John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Christine. And thank you to Amy and Celeste. Great information sharing. And I can't wait to share with my high school freshman and ask her to try on different identities. I think that's going to go over really well. So it's been working great. We heard great information from Amy on, the pre-apprenticeships and really the impact that it has to the student to try on and to develop, and then the influence that business and industry have to help develop these pre-apprenticeships. And so happy to share that in our region, we have over 11 registered pre-apprenticeship programs currently, and we are working on adapting a pre-apprenticeship program in childcare, and that same childcare provider is taking on the yeoman's work of creating a registered apprenticeship program also. We have several schools in our region that have a childcare pathway, and so we're trying to be responsive to that. And I hope at our next Business Advisory Council meeting to report good news on that registered apprenticeship program. It's been in the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services in this pandemic time and unemployment time. They have just been, good, strong partners to help contribute and move this Apprenticeship Ohio and pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship movement forward. So we're grateful for that. A big part of our work-based learning, as you heard, around the country, within a state, within the region, are really these relationships and these business partnerships. And they continue to grow here in Central Ohio, and thankful to have so many of those partners here on the call today, as both active participants with work-based learning, but also are currently in development of creating mentorship programs, work-based learning experiences through a job shadow type of virtual element, and also just helping on some of the workforce development aspects. Those communication skills, how to hold a business conversation, how to do an interview, how to create an effective, albeit very early resume with early job seekers in this emerging workforce. And it's been developing, and I'm very grateful that these partnerships continue to grow in our logistics and distribution area, in our information technology area, in our healthcare areas, in technology as a whole. Our partner Rich Granger from Drive Ohio is here. That's fantastic. Continue to build those out, and we've been able to touch all of our industries here in Central Ohio in some aspect of work-based learning through these experiences, and including too in STEM. And these conversations around STEM and work-based learning are happening at the elementary age, and then programming in middle school, and then into high school. And great things are moving along with our friends at Cardinal Health as we see the STEM focus on achieving, especially in the third grade, where we're really trying to help that momentum continue and latch into math and science So great. I wanted to share that. But also know that, there's more work to be done, right? There's more relationships to develop. But I wanted to share coming in next about a really great example of a work-based learning relationship and partnership. And we've developed this in conjunction with Columbus City Schools. And we have 4 middle schools in this coalition on the west side, Hiltonia, Starling, Wedgwood, and Westmore middle schools. And we've aligned 4 employers with that, with those middle schools, including CODA, Drive Ohio, the Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio, and Palmer Donovan. It would be great to have all 8 of those folks in this panel, but we narrowed it down, and I'm happy and grateful to share that we have Principal Jenny Mead with us this morning, Principal Christopher Horn with us, Tracy Spikes from CODA, and Sean Richard from Palmer Donovan, and they're going to share a little bit about this employer engagement series that has been developed. We started in January and we're proceeding through. So I'm gonna ask Jenny, Principal Mead, to share a little bit on how this relationship has developed to what we currently have in our employer engagement series.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Mead, proud principal at Wedgwood Middle School. So when we met in the fall, we started having conversations of just what we can do to improve experiences for students as they help to identify careers, careers of interest. And this is my first year back in middle school. So I worked with high schools before and really did a lot of work with seniors. So one of the things that we started talking about as a group is the importance of developing those skills and those interests in middle school, so that as we start to identify career pathways and industry credentials, we're not starting those conversations the junior year of high school for a student. They're really beginning kind of more at an organic level. And so one of my run-ins with John, I think last year we had discussed that at Columbus State, they did kind of this neat panel with students and businesses sharing experiences for students to be able to really hear what it was. And so we really wanted to recreate kind of that idea. What a great year to do it, because this online platform was, we're able to tap into a lot of different students. We're not always having to find time within the day. We can be more intentional about when we offer those. So what we discussed was really kind of creating a rotating experience for students to be able to engage with businesses and hear about the skills. And the questions that the kids are asking are really, really interesting, and they're curious and they want to know more about it. So we've enjoyed the beginning experience, but it really is to help that exposure at an earlier level.
Fantastic, thank you. Christopher Horn, Principal Horn, as we began this process, what were some of the outcomes that you are hoping to accomplish by the end of this engagement series?
So good morning, everyone. And first and foremost, I have to give a big shout out to both Christine and John. Without them, we would not be here right now because we would not have been successful. And so I know we came to plenty of meetings just dealing with pandemic leading and a little exhausted, and they continue to push this important work forward. And so thank you both, Christine and John, for your guys' diligence and your passion and your continued support of our students, families, and community. And so when we talk about middle schoolers and creating a purpose for them, a why for them for being engaged in learning, engaged in school, what a better place than to start with preparing them for their career and their future in middle school. And so not only did we want to give them awareness of the careers that are out there and the different pathways that they have, but we wanted to be specific in making it real for them with businesses and opportunities that are on the west side of Columbus. And so we were very intentional in doing that. And as I said, John was amazing at going and getting the businesses to come. But I mean, it's all about creating that why. It's all about helping our students and our families to understand that there is a bright future for them. And if it's not college and if it's not military, then most definitely it'll be career. And so really preparing them, as I said, not only for a why for coming to school and being prepared, but a why for preparing for high school and being able to see the end, which would be them thriving in a local business. And so we're just really passionate about that. And we look forward to continuing to grow this work for all of our students and families.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Tracy Spikes, a workforce development program manager with CODA. Having the opportunity in the past to be very hands-on with students, but now in COVID, having to do a lot of virtual engagement. How has CODA adapted to engaging with students in our COVID times?
Well, first I'd like to say thank you, John, for having me on the panel. I am a Columbus City School graduate. My kids graduated from Columbus City Schools. I worked in Columbus City Schools for 14 years before coming to CODA and having the opportunity to have that experience come full circle with working with students has just really been a blessing to me. So, and then all of the contacts and all of the relationships and networking that I've had with a lot of the people on this call today, really, I'm so excited about, starting to begin the conversations with our middle school students. Having worked with our vehicle maintenance internship program over the last 3 or 4 years, it has given me a chance to get a little bit of experience with working with students and kind of trying to understand how we can make this work-based learning more successful. And I think this middle school project, we've been talking about this for a long time, in talking with students before they get in high school, giving them an opportunity to, just be able to explore some things so that when they get to high school and they actually start to put the work in a particular career field, they've actually started to think about it. So when we talk about, connecting with students during, of course, this COVID time pandemic, the one thing that was very disappointing to me was that we had to halt our internship program when COVID came about. And that wasn't only for the students' sake, it was for our sake as an organization as well, because we had to figure out how to operate in a COVID environment as well. So unfortunately, we had to halt our vehicle maintenance internship program in the year where it was actually one of the most successful years of the program because we had made some changes. However, in halting the program, it gave us an opportunity to think about this virtual environment and the fact that one day, we never know when we have to deal with each other from on a virtual level. Now, with the vehicle maintenance internship program, because the students are our bus mechanics, they don't work from home. They are in a hands-on environment. The only piece we really had to figure out was how we were going to have students in an environment and able to teach them about the COVID way. So we decided not to continue the program last year. However, now we are gearing up for 2021, 2022, where the students will be back on site. So in a virtual environment, all the things that we did to connect with the students prior to now, we can do in a virtual environment. We can talk to the administrators, the instructors, the counselors at the schools in terms of a virtual environment. We can present what the program looks like in a real live environment virtually. We can select students virtually. We can do virtual panel interviews. So all of the things that we were doing before, we can now do that in a virtual environment. However, once that all comes to a close, they will be back on site. So connecting with students from a virtual standpoint isn't really hard. It's just a matter of organizing it from a teacher standpoint because they're virtual and just pulling it all together. And so we've kind of got that, in place for this upcoming year. Connecting with students virtually is not very difficult. It's organizing the Zooms and, you know, getting in contact with the students, ensuring that the right students are on the call. So this new environment that we're in, I believe, has given us the opportunity to grow in how we connect with students.
Fantastic. And I'm happy to share too that we've got Sean Richard, Vice President of Human Resources with Palmer Donovan. And Sean, I'm curious, you know, what employment opportunities have you been sharing with the students, and why are those employment opportunities important to be sharing with these middle school students?
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, we've been sharing quite a few. We are in the distribution business, which is a very flat organization. So we don't have a lot of career paths that we can roll out to students. Most of the development and growth that happens in our company happens within the jobs. Some of the things that we've been focused on are explaining to them that you do not need a college degree to come work at Palmer Donovan. And there are many lucrative positions available within the company, so long as you show up with the skill set required of a high school graduate. So, you know, it's kind of sharing the idea that there is a career without going to college and incurring debt, and without having to go the Voc school route as well. So we've talked to them about customer service positions, which have career paths that go up through outside sales and sales management. Warehouse positions, production positions that you know, go up through production management as well, and even CDL truck driver positions. So many of these careers can generate significant income over the course of your career, but we're in the B2B space, so no one's ever heard of our company, and we're in non-flashy jobs like warehouse, distribution, trucking, stuff like that. So we've been talking to them about some of those opportunities.
Awesome. Fantastic. Tracy, I did want to go back to you. You know, you had talked about how you're sharing these different opportunities and experiences. Are there developing employment opportunities happening at CODA and partnerships that you're trying to connect with?
Yes. So the vehicle maintenance internship program has been pretty successful. We get about 10 kids per year. So we've been doing really well with that program, and we have a really good model set up for that program. So I've been tasked this year to open up a couple other career fields at CODA, one of them being IT and the other one being customer service. So we are in the process of partnering with Southwestern City Schools, the Columbus Downtown High School, Eastland Fairfield Career Center, and also Toll's Technical Career Center to bring in more students with work-based learning, paid work-based learning opportunities, and kind of roll out the same model that we use in our vehicle maintenance internship program. And I would be, it would almost be not, you know, I want to mention that being a part of the middle school enrichment piece, meaning talking to the middle schoolers prior to them getting to high school, has really been kind of a wonderful experience, because I take that time to talk to the students about the opportunities that they have within their school districts, the career techs, talking to their counselors, talking to their teachers about what career tech opportunities exist, so they can start thinking about it before they get to high school. They can start maybe connecting with some of the downtown high school, Fort Hays Career Center, to see, you know, if they have anything that would be available that these kids would want to, you know, maybe pursue. You know, I don't know if they have career camps or anything for middle schoolers where they can go into the career center, visit the different programs and things of that nature, but I at least try to tell them that those things are available to them so that they can prepare, you know, and be ready when they become high school students to start working on the career, start exploring, start experimenting with some of the things that they might want to do. So we are also not only going to be moving into the IT and customer service, we're going to offer positions, work-based learning positions at CODA in those fields. We're also going to expand our vehicle maintenance internship program to make it an actual pre-apprentice program, because currently the students involved in that program go through our in-house apprenticeship program anyway. So those are some of the things that we're looking to do at CODA. And being a part of the Business Advisory Council and listening to a lot of these presentations, are really giving me great resources in building those programs out, a lot quicker. So the quicker we can build those out, the quicker we can move on to get even more students in other high demand career fields.
I love it. So we're moving forward, we're moving fast, and we're building. This has been fantastic. We're hearing from the principals on how this is being created. We're hearing from the employers and really the opportunities they're sharing and how excited they are. But we're missing a voice. We need to hear from a student and how these experiences are happening. And I'm grateful that Principal Horn has shared with us Aldo. He's a 7th grader at Westmore Middle School, and Aldo is with us this morning. Aldo, thanks for being here. And I'm real curious, how have your experiences been these last many weeks as you've talked to different employers? Aldo, you're on mute.
They've been good. I've been learning a lot from these experiences.
Fantastic. Is there anything that's really stood out that you're like, hey, this is pretty cool. This is something I need to learn?
The CODA one.
CODA, fantastic. Well, and that's great because you've been able to see Ms. Spikes there talking about that. What's been interesting at CODA for you? You're on mute, Aldo.
How you can go to work there.
How you can go to work there. Outstanding. Well, the great thing, Aldo, is that we have more employers lined up to visit you virtually, and we're super excited to be able to set that. And for all the employers on the call today, this is our audience, right? This is why we're here, to help Aldo and his classmates. And I tell you, this is just super exciting. Aldo, I appreciate you being here. Is there anything you wanted to say to the group or to Principal Horn while you're here this morning?
No.
Hey, John, if I could jump in, I appreciate Aldo. I mean, Aldo has been one of our strongest students in this pandemic. I mean, he's been engaged from beginning to end in classes. He showed up on this very intimidating Zoom session. He's a man of few words, but he is doing an amazing job, and he is going to be leading some organization in the very near future. So thank you, Aldo, for joining us, man. We appreciate you.
No doubt, no doubt. Aldo, thank you so much. This is great. Well, so this is an example of how our work-based learning is working in the region. This is an example of the education and business partnerships that are happening. And I want to thank the panel for A, being here, B, for the continued work you're doing at the schools and businesses into the schools. Aldo, thank you for being here. This is where the rubber is meeting the road. And my next question is a call to action for all of you here, that there's an opportunity for you. I know you've maybe have seen these call to actions in the past. I'm going to put this in the chat that if you are an employer and you are interested in the Columbus City School Summer Teacher Externship, and you want to host or learn more about this externship, put that in that call to action. If you are a business and you are interested in engaging with middle schools like this or other high schools in the region, let me know, and we can make that happen, because it's the relationships like this. It's I mean, this is I don't know. I'm kind of shy on words for this, because just to see Aldo, a part of our group here, just is bringing great smiles and a lot of enthusiasm to kind of keep this work going forward. So yes, thank you. Comments in there to Steve, thanks for sharing that. Definitely to Principal Mead, Principal Horn for embracing this, and then our other principals at Starling and Hilltop. So we're very appreciative of you being there. And so please, you've got in the chat your call to action to fill this out, to let us know how you can continue, how you want to be and continue to be involved in our region in work-based learning and experiences and engagement as a hosting employer and with our students. So again, Christine mentioned that this presentation will go out with links and you'll have an opportunity to fill this call to action out again later if you've not had a chance this morning. Thank you.
So thank you everybody for a great meeting this morning, and thank you to everyone that shared and presented on the work that you're doing. And we really appreciate the continued partnerships, because without those partnerships, we can't advance these experiences for our students. So thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. You will see my contact information as well as John's contact information. If you need anything or we can help to support your work, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So thank you everyone for joining, and we will see you soon at our next meeting coming up in April. Thank you.